Hi Mohammed, I've got a quick job that you're familiar with. I've got so one I'll give you the staging details. I'm not sure if I've provided you with staging environment details, but we work on the staging environment now, and I've got this. We'll call it an ad for our product, which is basically on the where are we? On the demo map, we've got 7 pages for people to try absolutely free. By clicking on these, they'll go to that page, and then on any of those pages, I'm going to have this ad. So essentially, you come to the Bright page, you start scrolling down, start reading. Oh yeah, that's really liking this product. And before they get all the way down to the end of the page, we've got an option here for them to unlock the whole product, learn more. So what I've done is I've tinkered around with the CSS to get it close, and I just need you to finish off a couple of things. The first thing would be the unlock now button here. It needs to be green and that one blue, and you can, as a reference, you can grab the blue and the green from here or from here. I think they're essentially, they're the same colors. So yeah, you could grab the colors from there. You could also grab the PayPal code from that unlock now button or from this unlock now button, which you're familiar with once again. So what I've done, I'll just go into dev mode, into inspector, so we can see it responsively resizing. So if I come down, everything's looking fine. The gap between the buttons here is getting smaller as I so then we've hit the 1100 breakpoint, and these are going to come together again as I move it down. We've gone over to 2 lines. I'm just sorry, I'm just thinking about some styling, but yeah, keep going. So I'm happy with, well, maybe I'll just pause the video and I might brief in a couple of things. Just a second. Yeah, I just had a look. It's just the gap here. I can do that because I've got my head around that piece of CSS. And if I bring it down even further, it's all going okay. I've managed to get all of this okay. And then here we get to mobile. So on mobile, this checklist here, I tried and I couldn't do it. If I go to the page, so I needed, from what I could see, I'll just come out for a second. The checklist wasn't a div, it's just a checklist, I think. So I was trying to, for the parent container, set that to, text align center, and then for the actual checklist, that as display inline block. And it did work through just adding it to here. I was able to get all of this centered. I just couldn't figure out how to do it in the CSS. So just quickly, the CSS is all in, I've taken it out of Avada and I've put it all into the custom CSS file. So you'll be familiar with the code because you wrote it. And so the end of Scenic Gems page code, and then tick boxes customization. Now I'll just jump back a second. So there's 2 pages. There's this demo ad, I'm calling it, and then there's the About Us page, which you're familiar with. This is the one that you worked on. So on the About Us page, and to save duplication, I've been able to have the rules apply to both of these tick boxes. So they've got the same CSS for each one. It was a bit of effort and a bit of compromise, but I've got it so that it's just one set of code for the 2 tick boxes. So yeah, you'll go through this code, obviously, you know it, and a few changes and tick boxes customization there. So it's all within there. So if I go here, so the way that you may need to pull the checkbox out of this nested column, but it does give you, I couldn't actually get it to work, but it gives you some classes and div IDs and etc. So the checklist, if I could get it to look like that, that would be great. I've found that mucking around with it, I'll come back to, where are we? Essentially, I could only get these lines of text were all centered. So this one was centered to this one, was centered to this one, and they were moved over. And then the tick boxes were vertically aligned like they are there. So that's one option. And the other option is to have it looking like that, where the ticks are next to the lines of text. To be honest, I think that both looked fine, and I think the easier option from what I saw was to just have the ticks aligned as they are there, everything centered, and then these lines of text centered to each other. Just do it that way, because I found it looked okay. It was all right, and I think that is the easier way. Now moving on to these buttons here. So green button moved up to this line, and the space in between the 2 buttons narrowing as the window comes down, and potentially I think if they need to start all the way out at the edges to as they get narrower and narrower, basically all the way narrow, whatever that is, I don't know, about 360 I suppose would be the minimum screen size requirement. The buttons basically almost touching, and then as the screen gets wider, the gap in between these 2 buttons becomes wider. I don't necessarily need the button right out on the edge aligned here by the time the breakpoint, where's the breakpoint? 650. Yeah, it's 650. Where are we? Sorry. So as it comes down to 648, yeah, I mean, if there's one there and then one all the way on the other side, so be it, but a little bit closer would be nice. Like, so maybe the button, about here, and that button about there, and then the gap closing as it gets smaller. The gap from here to here, if we could make that the same as from here to here, once that button's come up from here to here, and maybe just reduce this gap in between this button a little bit there, just maybe to about there, bring the button up to about there. So that's essentially it. Yeah, I think that's probably briefed in. If you've got any questions, let me know, and we'll go through it. Thanks, Mohammed. Cheers.